Welcome to the Signature Sip podcast, a real estate podcast with myself, Jon Steingraber, and my beautiful wife, Michelle Pais. Cheers to the beginning of Signature Sip. I feel like now we're back and we have a lot to give. We have a lot to offer.
Till this day, by the way, I have to say, the excitement happens the second I land the deal, not when I get paid. It's the art of the deal, landing that up.
Right, it's the chase. Not only are we going to be giving a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experiences and stories, but we're going to bring on guests.
I bartended, babe, so something that you and I have in common, even though...
Babe, you bartended for how long?
3 months?
A day or two?
It's a podcast.
So you were like eating a tosta mista in Emily's bakery.
I think I was having a pastel de nata.
Okay, pastel de nata.
And a galon.
And if you're a realtor, if you're an investor, you're going to want to subscribe to this podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Signature Sip. We have a very special guest today, Dan DiStefano from Plan Architecture and Interiors.
Planned.
Done.
Isn't it planned or plan architecture?
Plan, one word.
Oh, plan architecture altogether.
Yeah, so if you Google architecture plans,
It comes up?
You're finding, that's why I named it that.
SEO, baby.
SEO, that's right.
You are a business
15
owner.
years ago.
That's amazing. Well, welcome on the podcast. Thanks for coming. Dan has worked with us, so why don't you tell him a little bit about how you met Dan and how we started working together?
How did I find Dan? I'm trying to think.
Probably Instagram.
Was it on Instagram that I found you?
It was probably Instagram, but we had a couple of contacts that we were housing around. So like your name would come up to me, my name would come up to you. And the first time I think we met in person was, well, we spoke actually, I don't know if you remember this, but probably 4 or 5 years before we met at the house in Harding, you were selling 6 Glenmere in
Livingston.
Yes, and I did the architecture for that.
No
and
way.
Either you did it or your group tagged me, and we had a little conversation at that time.
I bet you it was Chad.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I do remember now.
And then we wound up meeting, and that project wasn't one for us. But that to me is like when we started our relationship together.
Oh, wait a minute.
They dated.
Hold on a second.
I meant we.
It's like I'm finding this out now.
I actually meant you too, because you were a part of all of it as well.
Look at the room. This is how the rumors get started.
Yeah.
No. Okay, now I know. It was Steve and Ken. It was 6 Glenmere in Chatham, not Harding.
Okay. Chatham, not Livingston.
No, it was not Harding or right. It was
So
Chatham.
I had 3 projects with them
Did
at
you
the same
do that
time.
house?
I did that
It was
house.
sick.
I did the house on in Bernardsville.
Their
what
house.
was that, Round Top? Which they sold.
They did sell,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they sold all of them.
So yeah, I don't know. Was that their house?
That was their
Yeah.
house.
It was
That
supposed to be
their
their
first
house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that one. We did Glenmere, and then there was another one that we did. That
It was right off Southern Boulevard.
Yeah, it was a
in Chatham.
terrible home. It was
Small
a fire
backyard.
damage.
Yeah.
On a bluff.
Wait a minute. The one in Chatham?
Yeah, that's
You
the
did
one
that
on
house
Southern
too?
Boulevard.
I did that
so
one as
that
well.
house is the one that I featured on The Housewives, and I had Teresa Giudice was interested in that home.
Oh, really?
That was that house. Did you see that episode or no?
How did we
No.
end
No.
up talking about the housewives
I don't
again?
know because that was the house. It was featured on the show.
I'm always peripherally related to the Housewives. You can't be in New Jersey and somebody and
somehow,
not.
yeah.
It used to be Sopranos, right? Remember Sopranos? Everybody had a Sopranos story, but now it's Housewives.
That's way better.
I think I'd rather have a Soprano story.
Yeah. Fuck. We missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, but that house was sick too.
I thought all 3 of them came out great.
So cool. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I didn't even realize. Look at this. I didn't even realize it was Dan that did those houses.
It's funny because I tried reaching out to them not so long ago, and they were not open to conversation. It was very odd. I figured something.
They're
I
not
hope
doing it. I don't think anymore.
they're not. Okay.
think so,
I would hope.
no.
I hope everything's
I think they're
good
just
with them.
designing and stuff
Yeah,
for
I
other
don't think
people.
That's what it is.
I don't think they're building anymore. I mean, they're not with us anymore. But I don't think they were. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him in a while. So that's how it started. And then that's right. So I think I forget how I reached out to you. I think it might have been on Instagram. I was stalking your page, and by the way, your work is phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I reached out to you and I said, okay, we're buying this lot in Harding, right? It was on Van Buren.
Van Buren, yep.
And I want a 10,000 square foot home. And then you met me there. And then what happened? I know what happened.
Oh, we couldn't build a 10,000 square foot house.
That's right. There was all these restrictions, and thank God we didn't buy that house because it ended up being a historical property.
So
you couldn't even knock it down.
You had told me that in the middle of what we were going through. I loved that property because it was flat.
Yeah.
But if you remember, it also was a corner, but you didn't feel like a corner.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had a lot of like noise, if I recall correctly, coming
Blue
from
Mill.
Exactly.
Blue Mill Road, yeah.
So I'm really happy. Like, I think we could have made it work and you would have been really happy with it, but the outdoor space is important to you. And I don't know if that would have ever been ideal. Not as ideal as this. This is so perfect.
Yeah. So then, and then this house came on the market, and we're just like, screw it. Like, let's just buy it and renovate it. So Dan,
now he designed our pool.
He is responsible for the whole outdoor area. So we can't wait to get started on that.
You should throw some rendering slides up of that.
Of our outdoor space. Oh yeah, throw some. Yeah. We have. You did a ton of options and versions, but we ended up going, or we're gonna end up going with one that I think
the simplest one.
The simplest one, just simple.
It's just no frills, honestly. You know, that's like a test. Like, most people do that, by the way. I know everybody that you see all these photos of pergolas and outdoor living rooms and kitchens, and then you boil it down to like, there's just so much here. Like, I don't want all this fuss. And I'm unfortunate from a business perspective because like we always start simple and we get more complex and then we go back to simple.
Less is more.
That's
and I want that like that whole Greek vibe I told you about.
Yeah. And construction takes forever.
Yeah.
So like if you could do something simple that's less, there's no real good reason not to.
Yeah. For those of you that do not know Dan, just give us some context. Who are you? How you got started? Tell us about your firm.
I'm an architect. We do work anywhere in the tri-state area. Our niche is really high-end, single-family custom homes. So whether it's new construction, substantial renovations and additions to those homes, that's our arena. That's where we really excel. When I first started, I was doing everything. But that, to me, is what I love to do. I like that interaction. I like being able to talk through options, finding out what you want, how you want to make it personal. And then I really enjoy the conversations that I have along the way. So it wasn't for me to ever do multifamily or apartment buildings, or not that there's anything wrong with that. But for me, I like having the interaction. Now what we're looking to do is we're trying to do more of the soup to nuts architecture, interior design, oversee the construction, not build.
Project manage.
Yeah, I mean, essentially have a person come to us and take the most complex thing that you can do from an investment perspective and rely on us to get you from point A to point B or Z, whatever you want to.
Now, you don't do commercial yet.
No, and there's nothing wrong with it, but in our area, I just don't see it. If we were in Manhattan, there are some firms that are doing really incredible work. But for me, I can't express myself architecturally or artistically the same way on a commercial job unless it's something over the top in the city. And I haven't been exposed to that. I'm at the point where specialization, I really understand that now. So if I were to start going into that commercial realm, it would without a doubt take away from how well I'm delivering projects in the realm that I know. And I have plenty of that work. I'd be more than happy to refer that to people that I know that are good at that.
Because I remember asking you about one of our offices, and you're just like, I focus on residential. And I have to commend you for that, because a lot of people, they try to be all things to all people, and they'll just say yes, 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 yes. But the fact that you're just like, thank you, but I'm really focused on residential was great. Because the last thing you want to do is just hire somebody that can, yes, man, I can, do everything, and then ends up not being perfect. And
it's honesty, because that story, like if you're waiting around forever for me, it's human nature. You're gonna tell everybody that. Mm-hmm. And if it's not easy, or even my guy, I have 25 architects and interior designers that work for me full time.
How many?
25. You didn't know that, right?
What?
I try. That's because I really don't sleep. I really have the most amazing understanding wife and kids. I'm everything. The interior design side, I certainly let a lot go because it's a different discipline, but it's all under the guise of the architecture. But yeah, that's how many we're 26 as of the 4th of January.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Wow, that's awesome.
Big business.
It I mean, especially in that single family realm, as far as I know. I remember talking to somebody when I first got started, and they told me, they were 3 architects in one office. He had grown to 7 at one time, and it was just too much to manage. It wasn't. And I don't see it that way at all. there are certainly days that I'm like, oh man, I wish I could just do everything. But like the first lesson that I can reflect on is hiring people that are better than you at things that you're not good at. I had a friend of mine tell me, write down a list of everything that you do on a daily basis and break them up into columns. What do you like to do? What don't you like to do? What do you have to do? What can you delegate? What can you delegate but train, right? So like I did all of that. And out of the like 40 things, I really only like doing 4 of them. And then the other things that I had to do, I could train somebody to do like more than half of them. So, and periodically I update that list, and I still work from the same Excel spreadsheet because it changes, right? Like when you get to this size, HR becomes a consideration. Marketing becomes a consideration. Like we have a photographer full time that does video and photography. My wife just started. She's like actually doing the one that she's doing calendaring and creating themes and criteria for how we post. Hired a PR firm. We started that in May of last year.
How's that going?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. First, it helps you identify who you are better, right? It helps you understand, like you'll ask the question when somebody reaches out to you, can we help you? You're going to ask yourself, like, well, how does that fit into what we do? And they're concerned about it from an image perspective, but the byproduct of that image perspective is you're becoming a better person. You're becoming a better, maybe person is the wrong word to use, but you're becoming a better business person because you're like finding like, yeah, this fits our mold. This is something that's going to be good. And if it fits the mold, it's probably a good client because just like you guys, every project is a contract for me. So I'm meeting a new person with new criteria, new expectations. I don't really know if they know what they want. My job is to help them find out what they want. It's like Groundhog Day every day. And if we force a fit because it's not part of our brand, that's never a good relationship. I used to make the joke, and this is a bad thing to say, but I'm going to say it, that we find ourselves sometimes in a position where we're doing the unnecessary for the unappreciative. Okay? And I realized that I was selecting that. I was part of that equation, allowing myself to do something for somebody. Like, we're in the custom luxury arena. It's amazing what we do. Necessity, it's like very low on my list when it comes to luxury. It's not passing judgment. It's exactly what I do. I enjoy doing it. It's a perfect profile for me. And it lets me do really incredible things for people that deserve them. When they don't appreciate it, that's a hard person to ever make happy. And when it's not necessary, that rubric is all over the place. Like I might say this should be red and you might say it should be green, and I'll help you get to the right green. But if you don't need it to be a specific color and you're not appreciating the value that we're bringing to that, and they walk in, well, I want it to be yellow. And then the next week it's blue. And then they're starting to complain that it's costing so much money to change all these numbers. And by the way,
that sounds like our life, by the way.
Well, by the way, how come this is going on? We're doing this for 15 months.
Oh my God, that's so lots.
It's like, all right, well, how do I help?
So Dan, obviously we wanted to have you on here because you have a super successful business. And one of our themes in our podcast is, building and branding a business. So what were some of the big needle movers for you in your business that you went from Dan, the architect, to Dan DiAgostino, where people are like, that is a prominent guy that you have to go to, and people started recommending you highly?
Well, that's the first time I've ever heard that I was the prominent guy. So thank you for that.
You are.
I appreciate that. I still doesn't feel that way.
No, you are. I mean, you're here, you are.
Well,
we chose you, you are.
Well, thank you for that.
And we're very
in New
picky.
Jersey. New Jersey, you are, and a lot of people say very good things about you. You do amazing work. Not only do you do amazing work, but you get it done. And I feel like that's a big difference, because you have some people that can get things, they have great ideas, but they're not good executors. And I would say that you have the whole package in the sense that you're good on the social media side. You obviously know how to delegate. You have an amazing team. You do amazing work, but then you can execute that work to actually get done. And that's a really big thing.
Yeah. So for some reason, the way that you were asking that question, you were making me think of in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. In the beginning, I shook every bush that there was. I went to realtors. I know it's like I'm like pandering to the audience here, but realtors those were the people that were going to help me start moving the needle. Okay. I realized very early on that, yeah, architecture is a profession. It's an art. It's distinguished and all that, but it's real estate. If you don't have valuable real estate to invest in, there's no job for me. And I attacked that market.
And it's business, right? It's
yeah.
another business, and you have to have a stream of referrals and marketing. You really launched your business and started growing, and you got known within the realtor community, and they started referring clients to you?
Correct. Timing is always important with this, right? So on January 14th, it'll be 10 years since I quit my full-time job working at another architecture firm. So 10 years ago, I had no employee, I had no business. And I said to my wife, who was pregnant, I'm like, listen, I think now's the time for me to do this if I'm going to do it.
Right when she's pregnant. You're like,
she's pregnant. Yeah, I'm like, listen, because I'm never going to do it in another time. I know who I am. I'm floored by my kids. They take up, everything. I want to be there. Like, I left the office in the middle of the day to go to my kids' drum lesson and piano lesson. I want to be that guy. I'm cool to not sleep at night. So that was the right time. And my wife, like, I can't give her enough credit. She is like, she picks up everything and more. Like, we make the joke that it's like single parenting, because she knows that it's a joke. It's not a funny joke in my house. Like, I really get upset when I hear that, but like, I really do. Like, tonight I'm on the planning board in town, in the town I'm in. So like, my day started, my first email probably went out at around 6. I'm not going to get home until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That's really hard on your entire family. Going back to your question though, because I could ramble forever. I went after the real estate. I did the zoning board in the other town that I was in. I joined Italian clubs. I joined Builders Guild. I did everything I could for everybody for as cheap as I could. I mentioned that I was a waiter, and I was a waiter 10 years ago. I would go out and wait on tables, and I would try to make sure that, like, if I knew it was the realtor, I'd try to get their table and mention this, or if it was a contractor or even architects. There's a funny story. There was a prominent architect that used to be in the area, had 100 employees. They did like Kate Spades and high-end boutique stores in malls. So I'm like, you got to get me that table. All right, yeah, well, you know what? Bring out the appetizer. So I'm going out with a tortellini soup. I'll never forget it. And I tripped just all over his lap. I never told him my name. I never said anything, but that was supposed to be my foray to like try to get a job with this guy. And I let that slide.
Hey, that's a good thing.
That was in the beginning.
You spilled the soup and then you started your business.
I spilled the soup. The funny thing about that is though, like when I first started, I couldn't take other firms' work, right? Like, I worked for other companies, but I don't think it's cool to pawn off other people's work as yours. I know a lot of people do that when they're first getting started. So like, what good was Instagram, right? There was no point of me, all right, well, I'm going to go interview on a project. Who wants to see that? My 3 followers? No. So it took a little while. My cousin,
you had to build up a portfolio first?
For sure. I would I would go to these houses, and I don't even know how I even got one. Like, if I were that person, I wouldn't have hired me, because I'm going there and I'm basically saying, yeah, you could do this, you could do that. Well, I didn't have a website other than a landing page to say who I am and what I'm about. I didn't have examples. I didn't have references. I didn't have builders that I could refer to. I basically sold them on what you said. I'm like, listen, I'm who I am. I'm honest. I get it done. I'm going to work harder than anybody else will work for you. And then I would get the work. And then, 3 or 4 years after that, I was trying to get larger projects, and I had 1 or 2 employees working out of my house. And I remember Mike from ECS Homes is one of my closest colleagues, friends. And
he does great work too, by the way.
Thank you.
He does.
He's awesome. He's like the builder's version of my story, frankly. And we actually met through a real estate agent in Northern Bergen County, and we just allied our services, because we had nothing. Our first meal together, literally, like, we were trying to figure out like who was going to pay for it. I financed. So like, when I quit my job,
you financed your dinner?
No, close. When I quit my job, the first thing I did was get insurance, and they're like, all right, well, it's going to be $1,300. And I didn't plan. And I financed $1,300 because I had a nothing salary, because it's sad, but when you get out of school, you make nothing in architecture. I financed that. Like, everything had to be thought about or planned. And
So you started from the bottom.
I mean, it could, there's a lot of people that were like, their bottom was lower than where I was, but like I had there was no hand down, hand out. And today too, like I'm still licking my wounds on projects that I learned another lesson or something that I didn't anticipate. But you got to just figure out how to make that fit into the whole pot. When you get to the point that I'm at now, like Instagram, I have the work. Like I have the ability to put it on Instagram, and now I need somebody to manage it. So like up until about a year and a half ago, every post was me. Now every other post is me, or every other story is me. But I think that people like hearing the story. I mean, we have something over 30,000 followers. I don't even know what the real number is, but that's like a lot, but not a lot at the same time. But there are some people that like really appreciate what we do, and I love that. And it gives me, I do the things for my clients. I do the things for me to feel good, but it's also like helpful to like hear people like appreciate, oh, this is so great. My house looks like my house. I hope I could do something like this.
What's your handle so everybody knows?
At Plan Architecture, one word, PLANARCHITECTURE.
And by the way, 30,000 is a lot of followers, just saying.
Well, thank you.
And they're probably real too.
One time I paid a company to boost, and like it's organic, it's real followers and all that. And like I did it, and like 3 minutes later I had 1,000 more followers. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. No, I don't like I'm not about the number. I mean,
quality versus
and at the end of the day, if you have people following you that are potential clients for you, or realtors, I mean, obviously people that are looking to build their homes follow you if they see your stuff, or anybody that has a dream home, right, that they want to eventually build. Yeah. Because you guys post some really nice stuff. So does Mike.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, believe it or not, and people are shocked when I say this, but we get on average 6 leads a week.
Wow.
From Instagram.
Yeah.
Alone. Yeah. I mean, it's like.
That's great.
It's incredible. And they're like, these are the qualified leads, right? Like there are some weeks where we get more. Like this is the first week of the year that we're recording this. It's like, we probably got 20 calls, 20 leads for new work. Cause like people are after the holidays, resolutions, we're finally going to do this. We had guests at our house. It was too small again. I'm not dealing with this kitchen. Like these are all the things that I hear. And it's all because I hate to say that my success can be given to one thing, but I would say Instagram.
That's great.
Yeah.
100%.
And it helps me. Like I'm a magazine guy, I'm a book guy, but the amount of other professionals with incredible work across the world that I'm exposed to that I never would have been exposed to, right? I always relate this to the music industry. There are so many songwriters and singers that we never hear about because the A&R companies, same thing with architecture and designers, right? Just because
the gatekeepers.
Just because Luxe magazine, which I love their work, I would love to be in their magazine, but just because they didn't show a person's project doesn't mean it was good. I'm getting to see work that I never would have seen before. And it's influential to me. Like there's a bunch of architects and designers that I talk to on a regular basis across the country that are doing similar work, and we help one another. Sometimes like I'll even be like, they're like, we're doing a house in Vegas right now. We're doing a house in Florida. We're doing one in Delaware. We just got licensed in Delaware to do that one, which is pretty easy to get licensed in. You basically pay a fee. It sounds prestigious. It's not. You do paperwork, you pay a fee, and you're now licensed in another state. There are instances where people have a house in Texas. They're an architect that I've worked or talked to on Instagram, and they're like, well, why don't you just talk to Dan? Dan will help you out, and vice versa. So we're able to create like a little bit of a network that way as well.
No, yeah, social media is everything. Yeah. It really is. I mean, that's one of the reasons we have this podcast, right? And why we hired Nino, because we need to be out there a little bit more, because if people don't know who you are, then you can't serve them, right? And it's the same thing for us. And
this is cool because it makes you relatable, right? Like
it humanizes.
I remember 10 years ago, like that there were other architects that I really looked up to in the area. Not to say that somebody should look up to me, but it was like they didn't have this. Like I would have loved to hear
people's stories.
Like there's.
That's a great point.
I think everybody likes that behind the scenes. Like to me, I like the Disney's behind the scenes tours and like the making of the movie. I'd like to see that. I'd rather that than the final product, frankly.
Yeah. No, I mean, people can see that it doesn't matter where you start from. I mean, you started, being a waiter, and you were doing this and you were selling yourself on the project, and there's always room for you in the marketplace. And I don't think everybody understands that. Like we have new realtors sometimes come in right into our business, and they're like, oh, how am I going to compete against the Michelle Pais or somebody else? And the reality of it is it's about getting people to know you, right? And sometimes you do have an advantage on people that have been in the business for a long time, right? Why? Because I'm going to put my heart and soul into your house, into your project. This is your passion, and this is my passion, and we're going to get this project done together. And then it takes that 1 or 2 or 3 projects that then you can leverage as a referral, right, to recommend you, or as a portfolio. And it's the same thing in real estate. So this is really relatable, hopefully, to people that are watching. It doesn't matter like where you start, it matters, what your vision is. Like, did you, when you started, did you want to be a prominent architect? Did you want to be working on these big projects? Like, what was your objective when you first started?
It's the total opposite of where I am, right? I got into this because my father told me I would not make a living as an artist. I could draw anything. I love drawing. I still do it, but he said, get into architecture. And I had some drafting classes that really led me further into the field. I never thought of myself as a business person, and I still don't, for what it's worth. All of the business, like that list, all of the things that I didn't like or didn't want to do or whatever, I'm paying people to do. Like, I have a controller, I have a bookkeeper, I have administrators. I don't like business. I don't like talking about money. I don't like being concerned about it. I don't like HR. I don't like anything associated with being an organization. And for me, it's just a double-edged sword. I'm an artist, but in a very grounded, I'm a type A artist. Like, I get that it's important. I get that you can't separate the two. And frankly, I need all of that to get to, like, I feel like I'm getting the better projects. Every year, the projects that I get are better than the year before. And that's not to knock the work that I did the year before, because it was great work. But I just keep getting exposed to bigger, better, more refined work that better reflects what I really wanted to do. And I would not be able to do that if it wasn't for all of the people that I'm with in my organization.
Well, there's no I in team. And I do believe that some artists, aren't good business owners, and some good business owners aren't very creative. And so to be able to have both, that's when the magic happens. That's when the growth happens. That's when success happens, right? So if you know that you're not good at something, delegate.
Yeah, but I feel like you guys can relate a lot, right? Because with your team, for example, right, like you grew and you started delegating things that you didn't want to do, right? When I met you, you were doing everything.
Everything,
right?
Yeah.
So it was probably around the same time, where you guys were doing business, and now you delegate a lot of those, and then you same as him. Now you start growing into the projects that you're like, this is what I want.
Right.
These are the clients that I want to work with. These are the houses that I want to sell, which is kind of like very similar to you, which is interesting, right? I think a lot of people don't go down that path. They don't go down that journey. They start and they want to start where you are, and they want to start where you are. Like, that's where they want to start. Like, a new architect might see you on Instagram, right? Or a new realtor might see you on Instagram. They're like, I want to be Michelle Pais. I want to be Dan. And well, you kind of have to go through
the journey.
You got to go through the journey.
They
and
don't know the
you got to
journey.
pay your dues a little bit too, right?
Or
else how do you get to where, how do you gain that experience? And I feel like a lot of people just want to jump over that puddle.
Well, I also think it's because of social media too, right? People think it's easy and they don't see the journey. And a lot of people, I know in my business, you're seeing more and more younger people get into real estate. I'm sure with architecture, are you seeing more and more younger people right out of college just like, I want to be Dan?
It's a little different because it's economically cyclical. So right now, like 2008, everyone, like I graduated, I started with 140 students in my architecture class. I graduated with 18 of that original. And then after, like at least 7 or 8 of them moved on to a different field. So like right now it's saturated. Like 5 or 6 years ago, there was nobody, like you couldn't hire somebody. Like I would put a job posting out. I mean, hopefully this isn't really a sign of the times, but 5 or 6 years ago, I'd put a job posting out and 1 resume over the course of 2 months.
For an architect?
For an architect, yeah.
Wow.
And now, we just hired 3 people. I had a job posting out there for 3 days, 30 candidates, of which 22 were amazing candidates.
Wow.
It was hard to select from. So they're younger, but I mean, everything that, like, if you talk to me pre-COVID, I'd probably tell you an entirely different story, because I feel like every aspect of what I did before COVID, like, doesn't work today, and everything like after is different. And every
COVID
aspect.
changed everything.
But it's
We
also-
always talk about
Yeah,
that.
but it's also an indication of the market right now. We are in a good, strong market. So I feel like people are taking advantage of that too, and maybe getting into architecture, getting into real estate. It's like the market. But the
I know, but you don't just
crashes,
become an architect. I mean,
No.
it takes a while.
Of course.
Yeah,
but
and the same thing with real estate. Like you can go out and get your license. I mean, it's not the hardest or the easiest thing to do, but you can do that. But to be an effective professional, it's all hard work. I mean, it's ground and pound until you get your first one, and then your second one, and then I'm sure you feel the same way. If I don't work any less than I did the first day that I started this business. If anything, I work 1,000 times harder. And you know, at a certain point, you train. You're like, oh, this is gonna get easier. This is gonna get easier. This is gonna get, and it just does not get any easier.
No,
Like the things that I used to lose sleep over, I don't lose sleep over anymore. Right? Like everything was a mountain. So those mountains are molehills today, but I'm still dealing. If I wake up for whatever reason after 6 o'clock in the morning, I feel like I lost the day. Like, because I get so much done before my first appointment.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'd love, if there's a wish that I had, it would be that I could hire people to take care of what I have to take care of in the morning. But I'm down to the bare minimum. I even have a personal assistant, which again, I grew up in a family. My parents were fantastic, are fantastic. Lost my father a little over a year ago, but thank you. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. My father was a shift worker at PSE&G, and I graduated college with an architecture degree, making zero money. And my father was like, "You need to abandon this and just come work at PSE&G with me," and like as a shift worker. And I'm like, "Dad, I really want to go after. I want to try." And he supported me and all, but the reality is that like nobody gets it. Like nobody gets the amount of work that it takes. And there are days like that, you know, last week, Friday was like one of the worst days I think I've had in a very long time. And you can't help yourself but be like, what am I doing? Why is it at this level? Why am I still having these problems? And then like, it's almost like I'm an imbecile because 3 hours later, it's like, it's gone. And now I'm on to the next idea. And I just want to keep pushing and moving and pushing and moving. I wish that there was a little bit of evenness, but I just think that that's the part of the business.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't, right? Like
There's
it's
no
just
such thing as balance. There isn't. You're a business owner.
I think entrepreneurs don't get
reactive.
enough credit,
They
right?
don't.
So what, you know, we can all relate to that. I think all the business owners or even realtors or architects or anybody kind of just listening to this, like, yeah, no matter what level you get to, there is going to be issues, and, you know, they just get bigger, right? They're bigger issues, right? There's just another zero, right, on that issue, and it is what it is. But what is some advice that we could give, you know, people that are doing that, they're grinding, they're building their business, they want to continue to grow, and they aspire to have, you know, more financially successful firms or, you know, businesses. What is some advice that we could give them from your perspective?
I think identify as honestly as possible your strengths and your weaknesses. And whatever your strengths are, make that what you do. And whatever your weaknesses are, try to find people that are better than them to work with you. It's the family comment, bringing up my family. They couldn't understand hiring somebody. Like the idea of me having a personal assistant is so opposite the blue collar mindset that I was like my father would be like, how could you hire somebody to mow your lawn? Well, there's somebody out there that mows a lawn. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's their career. And my time needs to be spent advancing my career. That's not part of my career. That was the hardest. And, you know, that's a very simple example. But like in my business, getting my lunch, it's helpful for me to have somebody else do that. Like handle the dry cleaning. It's basic things. But when I tell you that I wake up within 40 minutes of getting out of bed, I'm on my first task of the day. Like, and high level stuff, like drawing the first round of revisions to a plan or a first iteration for a client, or about to like doing my 2024 budget. That's what I did this morning. I'm 8 days late, right? I should have done it before the end of the year. We had COVID, crazy COVID
You're
year.
in the early of the quarter. You're good.
You know, but still, like, these are all things that, like, whatever I can do to help me focus on what's going to advance whatever it is I'm trying to do. If it's like preparing for this podcast, for instance, which admittedly I'm sorry I didn't do very, very much for.
No, it's all good.
It's a podcast. We're just talking.
It to be like natural, organic.
You have to focus on what you're good at. And it took me a really long time to hire an office assistant. It used to be that you called the office. I would pick up the phone and say, okay, great. Thank you for calling. I happen to be in a meeting. Do you mind if I call you back to talk about your project? Like, that's so bizarre to me at this point to think that I thought that was acceptable, to not have somebody that was prepared and ready to answer the call. Like, and like, I get it. I was doing the best I could at the time, but like right now, if there's something that somebody needs to hear, it's hire people to help you do things that you are not as good at or not necessarily the one to be doing.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, at Signature Realty, we have an answering service, right, that actually answers the phone for us. So you don't need to actually hire a full-time person all the time, right? If you're a little bit smaller, there's different packages where you don't need a full-time person, right? You're on a subscription, a certain amount of minutes. So there is also ways. We have 2 virtual assistants from the Philippines. We actually use myoutdesk.com. If you guys want to check that out, there's obviously a bunch of ways to do it, but you don't need to hire everybody in office either for the smaller, people, right? The people that they're building and they're growing, they might not have 60, nowadays, right? Any salaries are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 pretty easily, and comes with that as Social Security and Medicare taxes as business owners that we got to pay and everything else. So there is ways to delegate nowadays more than there ever has been in the past. And I think people should leverage that, right? Because we didn't have that 10 years ago, right? We didn't think, oh yeah, let me hire somebody in the Philippines to do this or hire somebody to do my answering service. It was always like, well, let's just hire an employee that's going to sit at the office and answer the phone. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to do that 24/7.
And that was foreign to me too. When you're like, oh, let's just do this virtually. I was like, no way. Someone has to be in the office. Like, right. I have to see them for them to be hired. I mean, Nino's laughing at me, but that was Nino. I was like, you can't work from home. What are you talking about? I need to see you in the office. You need to be here at 9:00. Now it's like, don't call me. Only if you need me.
Yeah,
we're good.
That's great advice. Do what you do best, delegate the rest, right? Highest and best use. What is it? Write down your strengths, your weaknesses. What can I delegate? What can I delegate, but I have to train somebody. I love that audit that you did. And you said you do that every so often, right?
Whenever I'm overwhelmed, I should probably do one right now, actually, because I'd probably
Are you overwhelmed?
I feel a little overwhelmed. It's like end of the year. We had, here's a statistic, right? Out of the 26 that we have, 17 of us are in office in one location. Mm-hmm. 15 of us got COVID. So
out of 17 people?
From December 15th through the end of the year into the holidays, pretty much nothing happened.
But I think everybody got sick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, this was a bad bout for I've had COVID before. It was like a walk in the park. This was like an event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was out for 4 days easily.
Yeah. I got the flu. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people got the flu or COVID, and I feel like everybody. In the last 3 weeks at some point or another was very, very sick, or still is sick.
Listen, that's another reminder, right? Like, you inevitably will have moments where you're like, I could do this. I could do that. Why is this taking so long? There's that phrase, and I don't know where it comes from, but if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Mm-hmm. 100%, hard to believe. Yeah, I could do something faster than somebody else could, but I can't do everything faster. And if I have 5 or 10 people doing the things that I need them to do to help me, at the end it's so much further. And that's another thing that goes into the hiring people thing. You really do need good people to help you.
Right. No, 100%.
And I'm sure
you should screen them. One of the things, it's not always hiring internally either. Sometimes it's bringing somebody from the outside, right? And setting those expectations and, saying, all right, this is what we want to accomplish moving forward. Why are you qualified? And really posturing it up and interviewing people to bring in people. It's not always, I've made that mistake previously. It's like, oh, well, this person's here, so let's give them this role. Right. And that's not always the best way to do it.
No. In architecture specifically, I'm a dork. I love reading about architecture, the history of architecture. And you hear all these names like Frank Lloyd Wright and Frank Gehry, and they're all famous people. And right, you think that that's what it is. It's a brilliant person, a genius who created this. It's not that at all. right? I would never consider myself of that ilk. I'm not comparing myself to that. But the reason I called it plan architecture was because I didn't want people to come into the company and feel like they had to work for me or work under me. Like, part of hiring the right people is giving them independence in the company that you are, having the ability to design, to think.
Especially in your business, right?
Exactly.
They have to have that autonomy. They need to feel like they're expressing their creative, expression.
They're my standards. They're Dan DiStefano standards. They're my methods, my means of delivering a project. But like, there are people that come into the office and work with members of my staff. It's their relatives, their friends, and they're thrilled. And so, like, nobody wants to just come and do what I tell them to do all day. And I'm not that type of person. So I think it's a double-edged sword. That's the other thing, right? I have a pretty high success rate with keeping people. I think I've lost one person over the 10 years, and they moved on to another profession altogether. So giving people the freedom to do what they want in the company helps them get motivated. We're talking about like the profession, but 90% of my day has nothing to do with architecture and design. It's people and aligning and how to answer an email. Not like how to answer, like, you need 3 2x4s. Like, how do you tell this client who's about to go off the rails how to get back on the rails, right? How do you steer that contractor?
It's emotional intelligence, right? In all of our businesses, we need to understand that is, when you're dealing with people. Some businesses, they don't deal with people,
It's
right?
service, right? Any
Ours,
service,
we do.
it's EI.
You're 100%
100% in the service industry.
And we're both in very, like they say, when emotions are high, intelligence goes down, right? I think we're both in that business because we're selling houses, right? People's biggest asset, people's biggest investment. They're buying it. They're getting into massive amounts of, debt, right? They're signing on the dotted line for 30 years. And with you, it's like, I'm putting a huge addition on my house. I'm building a new house. This is my dream home. It has to be this. It has to be that. And when emotions are high, intelligence goes down, and people get emotional. So you have to be that person that can handle that. And so you're right. Yeah.
I never thought of it until you just said it, but I did think that our two industries are the only two. They say never make a decision emotionally, but these decisions need to be made emotionally.
Yeah.
So we have to shepherd these people through like it's never rational, right? Like it's never a rational decision. It's always like, well, what are you going to like the best? And that is all, like asking a person to decide. The joke is always like nobody could decide where they can eat or where.
Well, a lot of times they're hiring you because they don't know how to decide that. That's the unique thing about you, right? Like when I'm like, okay, well, this is, I have an idea of what I want, but then you show me, okay, these are these ideas. And I'm like, wow, that's actually what I want. I didn't want what I wanted, what I thought I wanted, because you bring a different illustration to the table, right? You have your ideas. And I think, a good architect can manage that a lot. And I almost, I don't know if this is true, but I would think that sometimes you have to make people feel like it's their idea. Like this was your ideas that I helped put together.
So I think.
Are you speaking from experience, babe?
That's a good husband, not a good architect. So I think a little bit deeper into what you're saying. My job is like, if a person says I want to put my bedroom here, like they're doing that based on like they just thought that's where, like. But I'm going to get to the bottom of, well, do you really want it there? Because like if you like the sunrise, I could just put it on the left side of the house. I didn't think of that. Well, why would I like the sunrise? Well, some people like to have the morning sun come into the room and it's like a great start to the day. And then other people will be like, why would I want that? It's going to wake me up. And I'm like, well, you realize you're putting it in the middle of where the sun is, right? So why don't we put it on that side of the house? Like I try to make the emotional decisions have a rational reason behind them.
And there's a lot more to it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot more to the decision that a lot of people don't consider. And with your experience, hey, well, we can't really do this because we have
a beam.
We have a beam. We have pipes. We
zoning.
have this. Zoning.
It's going to cost
impervious
more.
coverage.
Yeah.
I have a meeting at 1:30, so you guys keep going because I need to jump off on this.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Something I didn't delegate yet.
Yes.
But you're going to work on that in your meeting, I hope.
Right. So Dan, everyone that comes on our podcast as a guest have to play this game.
Okay.
It's called 2 Truths and a Lie.
Okay.
2 truths, 1 lie. So give it to us, and it's my job to pick the one that I think that you're lying about.
Okay, so I will tell you that I am a heavy metal guitar music enthusiast with over 30 guitars, or I was born and raised in Hoboken, New Jersey, or
Don't try to trick me either.
or I happen to have my real estate license.
Which one is the lie?
Which one is the lie?
I don't know. I just don't see the 30 guitars.
I'm not a realtor. I don't have a real estate license.
I always mess this up every time. There we go. You have 30 guitars?
Yeah. It's
In your house?
Yes.
What, do you have like a band room?
I have a band room. Yeah.
Did you designed your house, right?
I designed my house. Designed it. The worst reason in the world was my buddy Mike was building a brand new home, and he showed me a subdivision, and he was going to build it on one of the lots. And earlier that day, for like the 50th time, I heard, we can't hire you to design our house because you've never done a house before. So I said to my wife, for the business, and it was for the business, we're going to build a house next to Mike. So we bought 2 properties,
No way.
subdivided it,
Okay.
built our houses next door to one another.
So you guys are neighbors. Are you still neighbors?
So we're not.
Okay.
Mike moved about 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
And this is fresh. We're moving. We're building a brand new house on the lake in Washington Township.
You guys are?
I haven't told anybody that. Like, this is like
Well,
a
you know
reveal.
I have the right realtor for you, right?
I know you do. Well, I bought it, believe it or not. A client came into my office to build a house there.
Yeah.
We went over the numbers. It was way more in construction than they thought it was going to be.
So you bought it.
I bought it. There's a couple more steps in there, but that's the easiest way to say it in less than an hour.
Wow, congratulations. Washington Township.
Washington Township,
On the
Bergen
lake.
County, on the lake. Wow. I love the water. I love the water. I can fish out there, and every time I go there, like it's not even a job site right now. Like, we literally closed less than 20 days ago. I just go there for like 5 minutes, and it's like 25 minutes later. It's like the animals and the.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's amazing.
Congratulations.
There will be a music floor.
Floor.
So
a floor. I can't wait to see this house.
We're making it so that, like, because my kids are now into last night my son had drum lessons and my daughter had piano. So like there'll be a piano, there'll be guitars throughout the house.
That's awesome.
The guitars that I collect though, like they're really special guitars. Like some of them were used by famous musicians. It's I started playing 25 years ago, and ever since it's just been something that's been near to me. I go for lessons. I go to lessons with someone from LA. So we do it over Zoom.
So you do have a little bit of time.
That's my therapy.
That's your therapy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And as far as getting your real estate license, you can always check out our school, signatureacademy.com. Shameless plug.
What a great plug. And now I want to do it.
Get
I was going to
it.
say, why would I do that if I have you? Why would I need the license? But maybe I'll go to the train. I would love to learn, actually.
I'll comp you, get your real estate license, and you can actually make money just referring.
Look
believe
at
it or not.
this.
Refer. You don't have to do anything. Just refer me a client, and you would get a referral fee.
I love it.
Yes. Always thinking. Great minds. We have to collaborate a lot more, though,
Why
by
not?
the way. We need
There's
to.
no
So
good reason not
There's
to.
no reason not to. I mean, you have...
And it's fun. It's more
Yeah.
fun than anything. And that's the point. That's the reason to do this.
And we're good peeps. I mean, we vibe well together. I'm all about energy and working with the right people. Like, that's...
You learn that lesson.
that lesson. I learned that.
It doesn't come naturally.
I keep learning that lesson. It seems that way. But Dan, you were awesome. Thank you so much for being
you.
on today's show. Tell everybody, how do they find you?
So best thing is Instagram, Plan Architecture, one word. Our website is plnarc.com because nobody can spell architecture.
Me included. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this episode of The Signature Sip, and we'll see you next time.